hardness scale. So you're going to take the minerals in this hardness set, and they are labeled by letters only, so you won't know which one is which. And you're going to test the hardness against some items that we know the hardness of. So you're going to start with your thumbnail, and then you're going to do a penny, and then a nail, and then glass, and then a streak plate. The most important thing for this lab is to follow these steps precisely, because you take one sample, and then here it says, does your thumbnail scratch the sample? And so I try to scratch it. My thumb is not scratching the sample, and so that's, if it's yes, I know what range my hardness is, and I can write that down. But if the answer is no, which it was in this case, that means the sample is harder than my fingernail, and it has a hardness of greater than 2.5. So then I move on to the next test. So this is all a series of yes-no statements. If it says yes, then you have to move on to the next statement. If it says no, then you know what the hardness is and you can write it down. And that might sound a little confusing, but the key is to work methodically, one step at a time. So I started with thumbnail, and that didn't scratch. So I'm moving on to the next one, which is a penny. So I'm going to try to scratch the penny with the rock, and it's not, well, it's harder than the penny. It's scratching the penny. So I have to move on to the next step. And then it does the nail scratch the sample. That's my next step. So I take the nail and I try to scratch. That is not scratching. So no says move on to the next test. Then you keep the glass or the streak plate flat on the surface and you try to scratch it. That is rolling across the top. It's not scratching. So that means the glass is harder than the sample, so the hardness of this rock should be between 4.5 and 5.5. And I would write that on my sheet. You've got a lovely chart on the back. And then using, once I've, then I can go back to my MOHS chart and try to figure out which one it was based on how hard it was. So it's not difficult. You have to use your time wisely so you can test all of the samples. And then once you have them sampled, all the samples done, you should be able to rank them in order from the softest to the hardest and get a pretty good idea of what they are. And it should be the first 9 minerals that are on the MOHS hardness scale. Like I said, we can't afford diamonds.